Hey guys, so this is Andres again, and we are here for probably the last of the virtual tours that I'm gonna do, and this time it takes place in the land of free, and this is the Warbler tour. It's a very exciting tour for North Americans because it targets all the eastern North American warblers. And the iconic one for this tour is this guy here, the big K, Kirtland's Warbler, which we have a really good chance to see in this particular tour. And I hope you enjoy it. As an introduction, I'm going to show you in the map how the tour goes. We cover a lot of ground and we visit 3 different states in the Midwest of North America. We start in Kentucky, move up to Ohio, and finish it up in Michigan. Let me put you on the map for this one. So these here are all the points that we'll be touching during this tour, and we'll start in the city of Lexington, Kentucky, in the northeast of Kentucky, because it's the biggest city around here where you can get flights from basically everywhere in North America too. It's the biggest city and the closest to our first birding spots that are right around here. And through the days, in 11 days, we will be moving up through Ohio, birding in the edge of the Appalachians here, in Shawnee State Forest and State Park, and bird in 2 of the the best known migrant traps of this area, Magee Marsh in Ohio here, and Tawas in Michigan, to finish up around here in the center of the mitten of Michigan before returning to Toledo to finish the tour. So if you're ready, come join me. Okay, as we will be moving through Kentucky, the bluegrass state, I'll be playing some bluegrass music instrumental for you guys, okay? I hope you enjoy it. And to start off the tour, we go to Lexington. And we typically use this very nice hotel. It's probably the best hotel I've stayed in America. The Double Tree, that has a very nice interior patio and very spacious rooms, but we hardly have any chance to really enjoy it because people arrive on arrival day, and then the next day we leave really early in the day before dawn, so that we can go from Lexington down to the famous Red River Gorge, which is right in here in these areas, to touch a couple of the spots. And this is the southernmost spot that we will be birding in this particular tour, and this is because of a couple of specific warblers that are known as the southern breeders. Alright, and for that we will start with a couple of pictures of the area that we will be going at. In northeast Kentucky we'll visit the Red River Gorge, as I told you, and this is the first spot that we will be visiting. Kind of mysterious. It is a rock tunnel called the Nada Tunnel, and the thing is that just around the Nada Tunnel there are these plants here, the rhododendrons, which in this particular area are the main habitat for one of the most skittish of the North American warblers in the east side of North America. This one here, the Swainson's warbler. This is an incredible photo that my friend Lyle got. It is a tough bird to really photograph. This, on the other hand, is mine. We visit there really early, so that we can have time, because that day we will be doing a lot of traveling around. So in here we'll go for this one, and normally we get it in this particular spot, the Nada Tunnel area. But if not, we have to move towards this other spot here in the Daniel Boone National Forest, an area that it is beautiful, called the Red River Gorge area. And this particular spot has very nice trails, as you can see me there, and the trails. I was going to talk to Sam in there. We visited there for the first time with Sam, and it has spectacular views. of the area, some escarpments, and some people do some climbing in those areas. This spot here is called the Rock Bridge Trail. When we went with Sam and a friend of ours to visit the area for the first time. The trails are very nice and wide, well done. Almost everybody can do it, basically. I have taken there people that are almost 90 and they have all been able to do this trail that goes down a little bit and up a little ways. In order to get to the river that you saw in a couple of shots before, to try to get this bird here, the Louisiana water thrush, another of the southern breeders that we wouldn't really have a good chance farther on the tour. So we go for this one there, and we start getting some of the most widespread warblers that are easier, like the black-throated green warbler. That was a female before, and this is a male here. And we start getting a couple of the other easier ones, like hooded warbler. That is a really cool one, among my favorite really of the North American warblers. So we start getting in these areas also breeding grounds of ovenbird, which is, believe it or not, my favorite of the North American warblers. Is a super cool bird that just walks on the ground. A lot of North American people wouldn't be familiar with this one, but in this tour we tend to have several people from other countries that are not as familiar with these birds, so we try to target all of them. And I will be showing you first the warblers, and afterwards I'll be moving on towards other birds that we see during the trip as well. But since the main target is warblers, we'll be showing this first. These are pine warblers, which is one of the best places to get also the Red River Gorge, this pine warbler, because we have a lot of pine in this particular area. Another of the easier ones to get and widespread is the butterbutt, so-called the yellow-rumped warbler. This is the middle warbler. And at the end of the morning, after doing this nice hike, we can refresh ourselves with a little bit of craft beer. We have a very nice restaurant that we have used a couple of times there in the Red River Gorge area, where we go for the first of the North American specialties, hamburgers. Yes, they make some really good hamburgers here, and we'll continue the day after spending some nice time in this very typical restaurant towards Ohio in the first day. So basically we do only one day in Kentucky, but that's all we need really, and then we'll move on to southern Ohio. After this very nice lunch that we get there, a very typical one, we will be going to ride from the Red River Gorge area to southern Ohio. We will cross the border between Kentucky and Ohio, that is this river here, and we'll spend some time around these areas in some prairies before finishing up the day in Shawnee State Park. Okay? These prairies here are very nice because they give us the first chances to get this warbler here, that it is one of my favorite ones. Prairie warbler, very nice one. Managed a nice photo of this one in the last tour that I did. But in these prairies, the other things that we go for are nice prairie birds like bobolink, that are really a cool bird to see in the icterid family. And we actually go for a few nice sparrows. We can get clay color there. We can get Dixie cells that are really cool to photograph in that area. Yeah, nice males of these birds, just spectacular. Really, one of my favorite North American warblers and birds in general. This is a grasshopper sparrow that it is just really cool. This grasshopper sparrow is one of the ones that we see there, but the the actual target in this particular area is a Henslow's sparrow that is really hard to get a picture of, so I don't really have it. But we also go for savanna, white crown, white throated sparrows, and there's an area in which we can even get swamp sparrows. So this is a great day, not only for the North American birders, but also, and more actually more for the international birders that joined this particular tour. This is the white crown sparrow, and the previous was a swamp sparrow. And then we move to Shawnee State Park. So let me put you on the map here. We have been birding in these areas in that particular afternoon, and at the end of the day we only managed to finish the day in here in Shawnee State Park in State Forest, where this particular lodge is just beautiful, 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 and is surrounded, as you can see, by forest. And in there we will target a few particular species that are really, really nice, that breed in these areas, that we will be putting some special attention to. Okay, this is the grounds there. They have some rivers there, they have some hills, because this is actually at the edge of the Appalachians, and so there's still some hilly terrain that are really good for a few species of warblers. This particular area holds Louisiana water thrush, for instance, if we haven't seen it before. But more importantly, the big target is this one, I would say, the Cerulean Warbler. This male is just spectacular. And in this particular area, they are, I would say, abundant, at least by voice. So if you know the song, they can be easy to find. And sometimes easy to photograph, as you can see here, with the Cerulean Warbler, one of the nicest of the North American warblers. Oof. But the other things that we can see here as targets that we can try to target in this particular location that breed here, so we can try to get them in breeding grounds, include the former warbler, now considered a different family of its own, really, the yellow-breasted chat, that we'll try to target in here, together with this other one, also typically breeding in the southern part of this tour, the Kentucky Warbler, difficult to get a photo of. This is a very cool looking bird. But the hilly terrains are really good for this particular one, the worm-eating warbler, that it is also happily common in these areas here. So we managed to get it because it is not easy to get it on the migrant traps farther north, but in breeding grounds it is easier to find. And finally, in terms of warblers, the one that we try to find here, that it is easier here than in any other part of this tour, is the beautiful yellow-throated warbler. Beautiful bird, eh? As I told you, if we haven't seen it, we have another chance of Louisiana water thrush. And from here on, we will be seeing several other things that are more common in terms of warblers and that are wider spread. But these are the special ones for Shawnee. And then we can start seeing common things like American redstart, that it is just a beautiful bird to see and to find. We start getting black and white warblers, and common yellow throats are easy to find in the meadows and areas that this particular forest has a nice combination. And we start getting northern parulas, but typically we get them as they normally are in the top of the tops of the trees. We'll get some better chances of all of these species later on. There are some prairies there that are really good for this particular one, a blue grosbeak. We have a fair chance to get it, but it is becoming difficult in this particular spot. And we start getting some of the typical North American or Eastern North American birds, like eastern bluebirds and ruby-throated hummingbirds. We get these towies that are super cool birds to see in the sparrow family. Just so cool. We start getting some of the most typical woodpeckers of Eastern South America. We get donies, we get haries, we get flickers, we get the iconic pileated woodpeckers that typically go down to the ground to feed down there. We get the, for a lot of people, misnamed red-bellied woodpeckers, among several of the typical things that we get in there. But by night, one of these nights, because we spent 2 nights in Shawnee, we go for this guy here that is a very interesting bird, the goatsucker, the Chockwill's widow, which is the farthest north it breeds. And so we visit a specific spot for this one in Shawnee. So after spending 2 nights in this beautiful place of Shawnee, that it is, as you can see, hilly and beautiful, we move north. And in there, we have a long drive from Shawnee State Park, that is in southern Ohio, all the way to northern Ohio. So this can take several hours, 6 hours of a drive. And normally we tend to break it with a couple of stops, trying to find here and there a couple of things if we get some news of some things occurring in the area. But basically what we want to do is go all the way to the south edge of Lake Erie, just east of the city of Toledo, right here, where we will see one of the most spectacular North American migrant traps, the famous Magee Marsh, which is right in here, this green area that you can see in here. Okay, and this is one of the few areas where you can see some forest, and where the warblers pile up before doing the jump across the lake and continuing their migration north. And I'll be showing you right now several pictures of this famous spot so that you get a feeling of what it is. And then I will try to show you, or will try to give you the experience of an overload of warblers that you will be getting when you visit this famous spot here. The famous Magee Marsh, which basically is one birding trail, that it is a wooden platform, a boardwalk, that it is about a mile long, in which congregates a lot of people every migration season. I was meant to tell you before at the start of the tour that we have to do this tour in mid-May, which is the peak of migration of warblers in this area. And this is the peak of migration of the tropical birding guides that you can see here to these areas to meet all the birders as well. And so this crew will help us. I'll tell you a little bit about it. And they are normally not this ridiculous looking. This is part of the trail, and this is a very calm day in which you can still see some birds, but whenever we have the top of migration and the top of the holidays for some people, like Mother's Day, this is how it normally looks like, that trail. Full of people, and happily there is enough birds for everybody. But it can be overwhelming. This is one of the famous things about this particular spot here. Thousands of birders, thousands of birds. If you're lucky, and we actually try to time it to the end of this particular busy season, we can get the boardwalk for ourselves and we can try to take photographs. You look at these pictures here of these people taking the shots of warblers, because they come down here, selfie time, because they come here and they are waiting to cross the lake. They do it slowly, or they tend to take their time so that they rest a little bit before doing this big jump, and the warblers tend to be low down and we can take some nice pictures. As I was telling you, our guides, this is Keith here, have been coming here for 12 years now, and people know us well, a little too well, I think. And they come here and they ask us, and we help them finding the birds, getting some information about where to bird. And we give them these very nice spring warbler guides that we built for these occasions. And we normally have this crew of tropical birding guides like Phil and Lyle here, who give information to everybody, and we meet them and they talk about the next destination, their tours. We meet them yearly, so that's what we normally do. But while we are in this tour, these guides that are doing the promotional events, they help us, they help whoever is guiding this particular tour to give information about where the birds are. Of course, this is exhausting and they tend to have a little bit of a downtime wherever they can. But on other times, here is me, for instance, giving some information to these people for a possible Kirtland warbler that showed up close to the beach area that you can see in here. This is what it looks like for the warblers. That's why they tend to be in this particular one mile stretch of forest before jumping. So when the warblers see this, they say, no, I'm going to stay a little bit longer here. And that's when they come down even low. Even when they belong to the top of the trees, they come down to ground level so that we can photograph them before they do this big jump to the across the lake. This is a lot of people there congregating after a rare bird that was seen here. I can't remember which one was that, really. And now we start with the birds that we can see here. And I have just compiled a lot of pictures of warblers in alphabetic order, and I'll be telling you some of those right now. I'll be telling you all of them right now. Like a beautiful American red star. This is one of the best places to take pictures of those. At this point, maybe this will be new for us on the tour. This is the bay breasted warbler, one of the nicest looking of the North American. Well, I keep on saying this, North America has some amazing looking warblers, and so many times these warblers are very easy to take pictures of. Black and white warbler here, the male with the black cheek here, and they are so abundant that when we are doing the promotional events, in between the guides we do competitions of who takes the best picture of any given species. We have done that with blackbirdian, with chestnut-sided. This is a blackbirdian male, chestnut-sided, and all other things. This is a beautiful bird. This made it to our t-shirt here for North America. And we have sometimes these blackpoll warblers that are here easier than in any other place to see and to photograph, really. Sometimes giving us weird angles that we normally don't have a chance to see. Beautiful blackpoll, which means black cap, by the way. Blackpoll warbler is the black cap. Black-throated blue for a while was one of my favorites. Is still one of my favorites, but for a while was my particular favorite warbler. But Ovenbird got the spot now. This Canada warbler is one that it is normally hard to get, but with the amount of eyes that you could see that are around, anything gets picked up and people share information, and we all tend to see even the rarest of the birds, as well as the commonest of the birds. Cape May warbler is a very cool bird here, and as I told you, since we have plenty of time in the area of Magee Marsh, we actually spent 4 nights in these areas. We have chance to get several different angles on the most common of these species here, as you can see. Cape May is one of those. Chestnut-sided, happily, is very common in these locations, and we typically make competitions of who takes the best picture of a chestnut-sided warbler among the guides when we do these events. As you can see, they are just posing for photos. On the other hand, and as I was telling you, this migrant trap brings so many eyes and trained eyes, birding eyes to the region, that even the rarest and the most difficult birds to find get found here. They get found here. This is a Connecticut warbler, one of the hardest, if not the hardest of the warblers that we tried to find in this particular tour. It is very, very tricky, this particular one. The last 3 pictures has been the same one, Connecticut. From my colleagues, I have not managed to get a photo of. And as I told you, because there's thousands of eyes, these rare and reclusive birds get seen. Information gets shared, and we managed to find it. And then some more of the common ones. Magnolia. There's a beautiful bird, the magnolia warbler, Maggie. Another of the difficult ones, mourning warbler. We typically have good chances of seeing this one because we go in this area, in the migrant traps, it is easier to see, but also we go to breeding grounds of those. And this is what I was telling you. This other one, that it is a little tricky for some people, a Nashville warbler, it's normally in the canopy, in the tip tops of the trees, but because of these migrant traps and some winds that occur typically from the north, they go down to eye level, and we can get pictures like this. The same thing occurs with northern parulas. You see, we have really good chances of photographing these birds without having to use any playback or anything like that. Birds here just are there. That's the beauty of this particular area. This is the best spot that we have for northern water thrush. You see, a little bit different from Louisiana, darker legs here, spots on the throat, even though here is difficult to see, and a narrower line behind the eye, more distinct spots on the flanks, on the back side of the flanks. And yeah, have you got an overload of warblers yet? Because we still have several to go. Palm warbler is around. Typically that one wags the tail, easy to ID. One of the favorite ones for most people here, prothonotary warbler, happily common and easy to find in these areas, typically close to water prothonotaries. Tennessee's is probably one of the birds that gets the least attention, but there are around several Tennessee's in these locations. Wilson's warbler is not that common, so we tend to ask for locations from the tropical birding crew if they have seen one around, so they give us the locations and we go for it. Yellow warbler is probably the most common around the areas in around this location. Okay, done with the warblers. That's normally what we get. We can get a couple more like golden wing and blue wing, but I'll go through those in a minute because we have breeding grounds later on. But the area is also very famous for this particular dude, that it is a very cool bird of North America, the American woodcock, or timber doodle they call it. Very hard to see, typically acts mostly nocturnal, but as again there's thousands of eyes and people share information, people see one and tell you where it is. The area typically has a nest of bald eagles around, so we tend to have good views of the iconic North American bird right there. And plenty of orioles. Baltimore and Orchard show up, and people put sometimes some oranges there, attracting them to take pictures of. Other birds that are typical, barn swallows, they just give you a nice pose sometimes. And typically, common nighthawks get also found and shown around. They are not easy to see normally, but again, since there are so many people around, they are seen. Also, typically difficult, but in this case we do see them. Black-billed cuckoos are around, and yellow-billed cuckoos as well. Another of the typical birds that normally would be difficult to find, but happily we get it because of the amount of eyes around, is the eastern screech owls. Normally we have nests of great horned owls. These are some chicks of them in the area, and we can get other things as well. Other things that are not warblers but that look very much like one. This is a warbling vireo, and for a lot of North Americans even, this is a target Philadelphia vireo. You can see it has this dark spot in front of the eye. Is one of the main things to differentiate between that one and this one, because even though this is quite yellow washed in this particular individual, sometimes it's not as much. That's one of the main things to tell them apart. The spot right there in front of the eye. Another of the typical North American birds of these areas is beautiful. The scarlet tanager shows up in big numbers, and this is when it gets tricky, when we get Empidonax flycatchers. This is an Acadian flycatcher, one of the not as tricky ones like willow or alder. When they show up are a little tricky, but we can get also least, and this guy here, yellow-bellied flycatcher. All of them Empidonax tricky flycatchers to see. And then we will be, as I told you, 4 nights in this area, so we don't only visit in this area Magee Marsh, but other locations as well. So let me put you on the map. This is Magee Marsh here, and this is the Ottawa National Refuge, 2 nice birding spots together. But as well, there is some metro parks by the city of Toledo that hold very nice birding. So whenever you're not in Magee Marsh, you can visit, for instance, Metzger Marsh here or Maumee Bay. There's Pearson's Metro Park, and around here there's Oak Openings, which is one of the nicest places that we always visit, looking for a couple of specific things. So on these 4 days that we remain in northern Ohio, we visit many times or repeated times the area of Magee Marsh, but we also visit several of these migrating spots or migration spots or traps that are scattered around the city of Toledo. Okay? So this is the Ottawa National Refuge. This is the big house that they have. It's a beautiful place there. And this is the Maumee Bay area where sometimes some specific birds get seen. And this is when it gets funny, because we need to keep our ears out for rarities that may occur in several locations. So we have to have our radars open and active in case somebody has spotted, let's say, a Connecticut warbler in Pearson's Park. Boom, we move. If somebody has seen a few rarities here and there, we do a lot of active moving here and there. And in Maumee Bay we tend to get this screech owl as well. But there are specific things, like in Pearson's Metro Park, we go for this isolated population of lark sparrow, which is a nice one. And there is a new marsh, a metropolitan park that has a new marsh where we can get least bitterns that are very cool for that. Also, they had been having yellow-headed blackbirds, for instance, and a few terns and a few other things that are related to water in this particular region. Soras is a good place to get them, but some waterfowl is there as well. And in Pearson's Metro Park that I was showing you, also we can get, so in Oak Openings, we can get summer tanager, which is also not very regular in the area. And as I was saying, we will be doing some twitching after some rarities that get found here and there. So through the years, in every year, there is some rare birds that have been seen here and there that we have to keep on actively moving out so that we can get them. So sometimes they are seen in Magee, sometimes in Oak Opening, sometimes in here and there and there and there and there. We move around, like this American white pelican. We try to target it when we have already seen most of the targets, and we can go for other things. One year we had, for instance, curlew sandpiper in a breeding plumage. That was an amazing thing. The other year we had a ruff, for instance, or a Eurasian widgeon. We had one of those years. Forktail flycatcher even was there. Horn grebe is another of the rarities that can show up. I mean, you don't expect to see all these rare things that I'm showing you. They show up because of migration. This was a great twitch that I did one year with a long-eared owl, one of my targets. It was just very rewarding. We got the voice and the message, and we zoomed towards it. Even painted bunting was seen once in these areas. A couple years back, I got my lifer snowy owl. That was a weird bird that just stayed longer, overstayed their time in these areas. By mid-May, should have been gone already, but happily, it wasn't. Last year's, the bird of the trip for most people was actually this whooping crane that got seen somewhere in the area, and we rushed to get it. We did a nice twitch and we found it. And then we will continue to Michigan. So in Michigan, our third state, after a few thousands of kilometers already, we will visit a very nice area called Tawas State Park, which is right in the mitten right here. And this particular area is another of the migrant traps in a different lake here, Lake Huron, that has a different dynamic compared to Magee Marsh. Magee Marsh is in the south of the lake here. Tawas is on the north part of this particular stretch of the lake here, so it receives migrants coming in, and they come here tired, and that's a different dynamics. So we do a long drive here, crossing through Detroit, crossing close to Ann Arbor, Flint, Saginaw. Sometimes we stop in there, and we move to Tawas, which is a very, very nice point here, very beautiful location that holds, as I told you, a different thing. So this state park here in Tawas is a very nice location. You see, it's a very interesting spot that receives a lot of the birds because this is forested. It's a very nice trail in which we go and try to find some of the birds that arrive after the long flight that they have done. This is more or less what it looks like. This image is taken from Google Earth. You see? So this is the Tawas Point State Park. But we don't only bird the area here. This is kind of the equivalent to Magee Marsh. As well, around the town of Tawas City, there's a few interesting things, and more importantly, probably, is the breeding grounds of Kirtland's warbler. And this is what draws here particularly. Okay, they have started a process of planting some pines so that they bring in Kirtland's warbler to breed, and they have been doing that really successfully. And so what we do is, here's our crew of tropical birding guides that when we went for the first time went there to try to photograph them, but we didn't know that the way to do this is going really, really early in the morning so that the birds are singing on their own from the tops of the trees. And so we went back really, really in the morning one day and we got them. And that's what we've been doing with our tours. Now, every time we go, we visit that one of these days, the first thing in the morning after one of the key birds in North America, the Kirtland's warbler. You see? A spectacular bird. Happily, it sings actively in the first hour or so of the morning, and we go for those. There is also some nice breeding grounds in different spots for other things that we may have already seen before in Magee, but may have not, or may have not seen it as well. So we go for breeding grounds of blue-winged warbler, for instance, such a spectacular bird, and as well breeding grounds of golden-winged warblers. Golden-winged warblers are particularly responsive in these breeding grounds, are very, very nice. At this point, we may have not seen this one yet, and it tends to be tricky, but this is one of the best spots to get orange crown warbler, a photo from one of the participants, Paul Greenall, in our last tour. And then other birds, because at this point we should have already finished up all, or seen all 37 of the North American warblers, which is all of them for this side. And maybe even, probably if some rarity showed up, maybe another one, 38, if we had like 1 year black-throated gray. But then we can take time to visit other spots and see other things that are also very, very interesting, like wild turkeys displaying. There is a good spot called the Total Marsh, where American bitterns tend to be around. The same with barred owls. There's also good places for black terns. There's a nice spot to see and to photograph cedar waxwings. And then we just take our time. We spent 2 nights in the area of Tawas after a few of the specific things. So after this, after getting all our targets in terms of the warblers and that, we go for other things, trying to build up the list and getting lifers for the especially for people that are not from North America, like hermit thrush or red-breasted nuthatches or white-breasted nuthatches, that for most North Americans wouldn't be lifers, but for foreigners for sure. And then we finished the tour in another spot in Michigan. So one day, the day we finish the tour, we have a long drive, because we start in Tawas and we go to the area north of Grayling to Hardwick Pines, and then do the drive all the way down to Detroit, where we'll be finishing the tour. But in here we finished the tour in a very nice high note. This particular state park has nice feeders that around May they don't look snowy. They are very nice and green. And we have some feeders that attract a bunch of nice birds. Yes, a beautiful bird, the blue jay, that it is spectacular for everybody that is not North American. But we have a good chance here on breeding grounds for like brown creeper, and then the feeders that I was telling you attract black-capped chickadee, sometimes house finch and purple finch even. But we finished the tour on a high note with evening grosbeak, that it is very high in the list for these for most people that do this tour, and happily we get a chance to really see them well and photograph them really nicely. So as I was telling you, from here we just go back to Detroit and finish the tour, and I hope that you have enjoyed it. Okay, but if you have enjoyed this tour, I just want to remind you that if you didn't, please go back to the original place where you got the link to the video and check for the other link for PayPal and try to help supporting the life of the guides. Watch this video and other videos from ourselves. Remember, I have done already 6 other tours that I invite you to watch them already. Belize, the Pantanal in Brazil, the Galapagos Islands, Argentina, and a spectacular tour, one of my favorites, Southeast Brazil after these amazing tanagers, and Southern Ecuador after rarities and megas. So thank you guys for watching, and well, thanks for being a good part of these virtual tours. It's been a great thing.